Hey guys, welcome to Topless Talks with Nova, episode 17. What's up, guys? It's been a while. I feel like I say that every single episode. I know, I'm so sorry. But I actually have a good excuse this time. This is my second time attempting to film this episode 17. I tried filming it a day last week, and my mic was fucked up, hence the new mic. For those of you who are on video, I have a new mic. And those of you who are on audio, you guys get to appreciate the audio, the new mic, probably more than those of you who are on video. So enjoy the crisp nuances of my voice. So, how are you guys doing? I hope you guys had a good couple weeks. I've been going crazy, so busy, I've been so busy that I thought about phasing out the podcast. I actually sat down and made the decision to phase it out. I was planning on only doing like 1 or 2 more episodes, but then like later on I sat down again with myself. I was like, what are the things that I really fucking care about? Okay. Being truly myself, which I do that. Okay. Making sure I'm financially secure, my dog is safe, stuff like that, and dismantling the patriarchy. And so this podcast is exactly how I do that third one. And the last few episodes that I've had have gotten amazing feedback. Ever since the episode about how to please your girl, my downloads have tripled. So if you're new here, welcome. But I want to take this chance to talk about things that really matter and that really affect you guys, my viewership, which most of you are men. And so I thought this was a perfect opportunity to talk about something that may be a buzzword, may be a hot topic for everyone. But we're going to talk about toxic masculinity today. And like I said, I know it's a buzzword right now, but I kind of want to just talk about it in a different perspective than maybe you've heard. And this conversation benefits everyone, men, women, all genders, all sexes, all ages. This conversation benefits everyone. So what is toxic masculinity? Basically, when I'm saying it, I'm referring to the practices in our society that kind of promote manly ideals. And if you're on audio, you didn't see, but I put quotations around manly. Because what is manly, okay? We'll get to that. But the manly, quote unquote, manly ideals that are promoted in our society are like emotional suppression, aggressiveness, dominance over others, and most of all, the rejection of anything and everything that is considered feminine. And not only that, but toxic masculinity perpetuates power dynamics in our society, like sexism or just discrimination from the LGBTQ community. And when I say toxic masculinity, we're not saying that masculinity is bad. I'm not saying that being a man or being manly or being masculine in any way is bad, because it's not. It's just acknowledging that masculinity isn't like a one size fits all. It doesn't look the same on everyone. And that straying outside of these cultural norms doesn't make you any less of a man. And that's the most important thing, because toxic masculinity, if you don't follow these strict guidelines, you are not as good of a man as you could be. You are not a man. And I think that that is very unhealthy mindset for our culture to have, to be teaching young boys this. So this is my way of dismantling that, trying to deconstruct it. And I just want to start conversations. That's really all. I just want to start good conversations. So, how does toxic masculinity affect people in society? Because it affects everyone. Women, of course, that's the most obvious one. Men, LGBTQ community. It affects everyone. With women, I won't get into that because that would be a whole different episode in itself. But the main one that I want to touch on on the women's side is the normalization of catcalling and harassment and victim blaming that goes on in our society. That is all birthed from the patriarchy and toxic masculinity, because none of those things are actually normal, and none of those things should be considered normal. And it's crazy that they have become so common in our society, that they have become normal, and that so normal that we make jokes about it. And anyway, how does it affect men? It is especially harmful to men because, first of all, boys don't cry. Real men don't cry. Real men don't ask for help. These are all narratives built by the patriarchy and perpetuated by toxic masculinity. It is statistically proven that men have higher rates of depression, have higher rates of suicide, struggle more to connect with their friends, to have meaningful connections at all. That's because in a society, in our culture, we have very strict gender roles of what men and women should act, and men are considered the providers. They're considered the protectors. They need to be the breadwinners, and they need to be stoic. They need to be strong. And if they're not these things, then they're lesser than, that they are not a man. So you can imagine how harmful that can be to a developing brain, or even an adult, how harmful that can be to your mindset of, well, I'm not a man if I don't participate or behave in a certain way. When in reality, you don't need to behave any kind of way to be a man, because you're already a man, or whatever you identify as, And it's important to note that homophobia and transphobia, those ideals are literally rooted in patriarchy, because patriarchal beliefs are there are only two genders, each with very strict gender roles. And if you stray outside of that, you're considered an other or less than. And the anger that is provoked from these things, stems from the belief that, any deviation from this very strict structure threatens the entire patriarchy, threatens the entire structure of gender in our society in general. You've heard the term real men aren't gay, or being transgender is a mental illness. These are all patriarchal beliefs, patriarchal views, and toxic masculinity perpetuates that. So it's also really important to note that men of color, or men of a lower income bracket, they will face not only the struggles that men as a whole face, but also the struggles that men of color and or men of low income face. So you've heard of the stereotypes, angry black men, or the stoic Asian father, or the aggressive Latino man. Not only do they face the impossible societal expectations of being perfect, but they also have racism to deal with, and cultural stereotypes. And it's important to remember that living in poverty can also create some really toxic behaviors as well. And in a society that doesn't value the lower class, that cycle is just going to perpetuate and repeat itself over and over and over. So, how do you start unlearning all of this? How do you stop what you're doing and kind of face the flowers and kind of face yourself and realize, how am I perpetuating these beliefs and how can I unlearn this? It starts with asking yourself questions. What kind of messaging were you given growing up to what was a real man, or what it means to be a provider, or what it means to be the breadwinner, or what kind of role that you play as a man in a family setting? It's important to kind of break down that messaging and figure out whether or not that's healthy. Another question to ask is, when was the last time you felt comfortable hugging your male best friend? When was the last time you felt comfortable expressing how you felt? Or when was the last time you didn't feel comfortable expressing how you felt? Ask yourself these questions and really try to take a step back and be logical, be intellectual about it. Break it down in your head. Try not to be emotional or come at it from an emotional state. Come at it from a logical state. Once you start to kind of unpack all of that, then you can start learning healthy coping strategies. You can start journaling. A lot of men say, "Oh, journaling's for girls." It's not actually. It's a very, very useful tool that I utilize. I think everyone should utilize journaling or therapy. In our society, men are looked down for asking for help or going to therapy. It's definitely getting better. The stigma with mental health is slowly getting better, but despite that, men's suicide is only getting higher. So that just means that we need to keep having these conversations, and we need to keep reaching out to our male friends, and we need to keep encouraging our male friends to reach out and to be vulnerable. Because the only way that men are going to learn that it's okay to open up is if they see other men opening up. And when they see other men opening up, they need to see it received well, because otherwise they will only close up even more. First of all, kind of redefine what strength is to you. Physical strength, that's a thing all on its own, because there's only one way to improve our physical strength, and that's to go to the gym and work out. But emotional strength is not being stoic. It's not emotional suppression, because that's the easier route. It's a lot harder to be vulnerable. It's a lot harder to be honest with ourselves about how we feel. So to me, vulnerability is strength. So you need to start challenging these cultural norms. Okay. Challenge toxic behavior. If you see one of your buddies say something out of pocket or misogynistic or racist or whatever, you need to call them out on it. And you don't even necessarily have to be mean. You can just simply say, "What do you mean by that?" Make them explain. Kind of put them on the spot and make them think about the words that they're saying on a deeper level, not so surface level. Or if you are confident enough, you can say, "That comment feels a little outdated. Let's rethink how we talk about this." That's a really constructive and neutral way to tell someone that they're being bigoted or that they're being misogynistic or that they're being racist, because you don't want to be mean, because that's just going to get their defenses up, especially with this topic, because under the patriarchy, men are constantly under competition. And if a man perceives how you're approaching them incorrectly, and if they take it as an attack or an assault or whatever, they will not be cooperative and they will not be receptive. So it's important to try to stay neutral, especially if you're friends with this person, especially if you want to actually teach them and play your part in dismantling this behavior, because the only way to dismantle it is education. The only way to improve this is by education and enlightening people of how this behavior is unhealthy for everyone. And like I said before, try to model the healthy behavior. Like, be the change that you want to see in the world. Fucking Gandhi had it right, because, like I said, men are only going to start feeling comfortable being vulnerable, opening up if they see that it's okay to do so. So they need to see other men doing it, and they need to see it being received well. I try to play my part every single day in letting men open up, letting men be vulnerable, and receiving that well. And I need everyone else to do the same. I need everyone else, because sometimes men are their own worst enemy. Men are some of the most toxic to each other. And a lot of time, men will make fun of other men for crying, or call them a pussy, or say they're being a wuss, or whatever that may be. A lot of it is coming from other men. So the best thing for you to do is just model that healthy behavior. Show people what it means to be a good person, an understanding person, a compassionate person. And I'm circling back to redefining what strength is to you. Because once you, in your head, redefine what it means to be a man for yourself, because it's not going to look the same on your cousin or your dad or your uncle or your brother or your best friend. It's not going to look the same on everyone. So once you redefine what strength means to you, then you can start behaving that way and showing other people, especially men, but other people, men and women and non-binary folk, you can start showing people what healthy behavior looks like, what accepting behavior looks like, what it means to be open and confident in loving and accepting of everyone and people in general and of yourself. Because that right there is such a radical way of defying the patriarchy, of being loving and accepting, because that's exactly what the patriarchy doesn't want. The patriarchy wants us to uphold this very strict structure, and accepting people of all walks of life is directly against that. So the resistance that we feel to this, it's ingrained in us. There's different levels of resistance in all of us, but catching yourself in that moment and figuring out, is that a healthy way of thinking? Am I allowing them to be vulnerable? And am I giving them a safe space to do so? Because that's what men need. That's what men and people need, is a safe space to be themselves without judgment. And try to catch yourself in moments where you find yourself saying to other people or yourself, like, man up, or telling someone that they're being too soft. That is toxic. You need to allow others and yourself the grace to be human, because being human includes such a wide spectrum of emotions, such a wide spectrum of experience, and love and sadness and joy and confusion, and just so many different things that we can feel. And it doesn't make someone less of a human for feeling these things. In fact, it makes them more of a human. And reducing someone to stoicism like we in our society reduce men to this stoicism, to this emotional suppression. We don't allow men to feel these things. So we're not allowing men to be human. So allow yourself and allow others the grace of experiencing life without judgment and whatever that looks like for them. And when you see a man being vulnerable, be encouraging. Maybe open up yourself. That is the only way that we are going to heal, is if we are more receptive to each other, if we are more encouraging, if we are more open to each other and less defensive and less from a position of fear. Because a lot of time we are operating from a place of fear, especially men, because the fear of being inadequate, the fear of not being man enough, the fear of not earning enough money, the fear of dying alone. These are all fears that are pounded into us from the second we are born, especially men. You have to be strong, you have to be stoic, you can't show emotion, you can't show sadness or can't be too happy, you can't enjoy certain hobbies because they're too feminine. You can't wash your ass because it's gay. Like the outrageous things that are perpetuated by the patriarchy and toxic masculinity are only limiting the men. They are only limiting you guys from experiences that might change your life. Like out of fear of being gay or a fear of looking soft or a fear of, looking weird or feeling inadequate. So instead of living in fear, we should live in strength. And like I said, to me, strength is emotional awareness, empathy, respect. And for me, people that I respect usually have qualities like dedication or patience and kindness. These are qualities in people that when I see someone have these qualities, I look up to them. They are role models to me. I admire them. I want to be more like them. They encourage me and they inspire me to be better for myself and for other people. So, your homework for this week is I want you to sit and think, or, if while you're working or doing something, maybe even while you're listening to this podcast, I want you to sit and think how you, as a man, the women can also partake in this. I want you to think about how you might perpetuate toxic masculinity. And I want you to be honest with yourself. I have perpetuated the patriarchy before, and I still do. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that any of you should be. In fact, I'm saying that you should embrace your imperfection and try to learn from it. How have you, big or small, perpetuated the patriarchy? It takes some being honest and some self-reflection. And I implore you guys to do it because it's really healthy and it's really good. And I think that men in general, like, I love men. You guys are a pillar in our society. Like, both men, women, and non-binary folk, we're all important in our own ways. We all contribute to society in our own ways. And I would love to see men in a more healed state. I would love to see men and women and everyone on earth in a more healed state. But like I said, statistically, male depression is rising. And so I would love to see that stop rising. I would love to see men have meaningful relationships with each other. So just challenge your beliefs, challenge your own beliefs, and try to be objective in like your daily interactions. That's all it takes. So, let's shake it off. Let's shake it off. That was a pretty heavy episode. I'm so sorry. I hope that my perspective can be helpful. Whether or not it enrages you or whatever, I hope that it can at least provoke some thoughts. If that's all it does, then that's fine with me. So anyway, last episode, I did a 2 truths and a lie. So there was 3 statements that I made. First one was, I've never squirted before. Second one was, I own over 10 dildos. And third one was, I'm a little bit of a cuck. So, the lie was the first one, that I've never squirted before. Obviously, I've squirted before. Obviously, I have. I just can't do it to myself. I don't know how to make myself squirt. So that's a skill that I'm planning and hoping to learn sometime in the future. So cheer for me on that. Also, I own about 14 dildos to be exact. And I'm definitely a cuck. I'm definitely a cuck. So I'll let you think about that. I don't have any more 2 truths and a lie, but I do have a cool little fact that I just wanted to pass on to you guys, which is the average speed of ejaculation is 28 miles per hour. 28 miles an hour. So the next time you're coming on her face, in her eye, just try to be a little conscious of that. Maybe aim, not up the nostril or into the eyeball, or, be aware of where you're aiming that thing. So anyway, I love you guys dearly. I am actually not going to phase out the podcast. It's going back to weekly. As much as life will allow me, it will be weekly. You're stuck with me. You're stuck with me for the foreseeable future, okay? So, buckle up, babes. Anyway, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.